David Heurtel, former Quebec Liberal cabinet minister, now political analyst, with us this afternoon. And for James Manny and David, we start with this new polling that is out today, front page of the Journal today, Les Fêtes Fréchette. So things are going well for the CAQ with Christine Fréchette. I wonder, though, is this Christine Fréchette separate from the CAQ? Because, you know, in terms of voting intention, I know the numbers are up a bit, but I wonder, that split, is that real? Is that like Mark Carney leading the Liberals and you kind of leave the Liberals to the side because everyone liked Mark Carney? Is this Christine Fréchette leading a party that's done such a bad job of, you know, running this government for the last 8 years, and they can just look at her and go, yeah, I'm willing to take a shot on her?
Well, we're not even close to the Carney-type turnaround that happened when he even announced that he was going to run to succeed to Justin Trudeau. But there is a sense that a lot of Quebecers, especially Francophones, were done with François Legault, period. Because François Legault, a few months ago, a Léger poll had him at 9%, had the CAQ at 9%, and now this poll has the CAQ at 22%. When you delve into the poll, there are two numbers that stand out for me. The satisfaction index in this government. Since the beginning of 2026 and if you go back to late 2025, the satisfaction of the Legault government was in the 20s all the time. And up until last January, where it was 29%. Now the satisfaction is up to 47%. So there's definitely something in the way she's doing things that is connecting. But when you look at the breakdowns of the individual, the segments in the poll, the most interesting one for me is the age groups. For the first time in, again, at least a year or two or three, the CAQ, Aaron, is leading in one of the three major age groups, and it's the 55 and up group. And so they're up 8 points. That is gigantic. Yeah. And so that means that, and when you look at that age group, 55 and higher, you understand that the two most important issues are obviously everything tied to affordability and healthcare. And coming in, she attacked those topics very, very directly. And my last point, Aaron, is when you have a poll, we always have to remember, a poll is a picture of the moment. And when you're calling people to answer a poll, you look at what you've heard about the other leaders. You're always comparing. You can't just put Christine Fréchette, in a room and just look at her only. The people that answer polls are going to be looking at, well, I'm comparing. So last week, when the poll was taken, what did you have to compare with? You had Paul Saint-Pierre and his conspiracy theory. Great interview, by the way. You had also, what do you have? You have, in the last few days and weeks, you have the Conservatives, Éric Duhem, talking about toxic federalism. You have Québec solidaire talking about taxing the rich and taxing entrepreneurs who only drink wine. And the Liberals, well, Charles Milliard, back and forth on 96 and saying in the National Assembly that there are two official languages. So when you compare also, and that's a lot of what happened with Mark Carney's ascent, but again, we're not even close to that. People were comparing Pierre Poilievre to Justin Trudeau and saying, I want Pierre Poilievre. But when you're looking at Mark Carney and you're comparing to Pierre Poilievre, people say, oh my goodness, I want Mark Carney, especially in Quebec, where the other choice was Yves-François Blanchet. So there's no way I'm going to vote for Yves-François Blanchet to help Pierre Poilievre. So here, what you're seeing is that the PQ's numbers are not moving either. And it's very important to see that. It's the division of the vote right now that it would give a PQ minority, strong minority, or slim majority government. But if the Liberals continue faltering with the Francophone electorate in the regions, which this poll again shows, now we've had several polls that's showing that, there's a clear disconnect between the Liberals and the Francophone electorate in the regions. Well, that could be the beginning of something. There are 3 weeks left starting next week. They're back in Quebec City. There are 3 weeks left. There's still a lot of time before the election. Final point, the poll also reveals that about 50% of the poll responders are saying that their support is fluid. That means that it could also change.
Haven't made up their mind yet.
Right. They're saying, okay, I would vote Liberal or I would vote PQ, but 50% of those respondents who made a choice say, I could change my mind.
By the way, the other thing in this poll, or I guess in an adjacent poll, I'm not sure, David, was this idea that as far as sovereignty and a referendum is concerned, those numbers are, I think, worse now for the PQ than they were even in the last poll.
Those are the Palace data. Have you noticed that the Journal de Montréal
did not include
anymore?
Those? Yeah.
Does not poll anymore on sovereignty. Very interesting. There are two things that you're not seeing in the Journal de Montréal Léger poll anymore that you see in other polls. The favorable, unfavorables for Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, don't see them. In all the other polls, of all the leaders, he has the highest unfavorables. And that's a problem. And also, the sovereignty is around between 65 and 70% against, clearly against. And same numbers that people don't even want to be asked the question. They don't want a referendum.
You know, again, I know I've asked this question before, but if polls continue to show this, and there's really, regardless of who's leading the CAQ, this sovereignty question, I don't see that changing a whole lot unless it becomes, something in the news every day. What do you do when you're Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon looking at this, noticing those numbers are not getting better? You could have hoped they might be. Then you might have, been able to talk about a referendum again. What do you do here? You do nothing? You just sit on your hands and try not to have it come up?
Look, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, he's not changing his tune. He's going to come out with more chapters of his blue book on what an independent Quebec would look like. He's staying the course. The problem right now is that his numbers are not moving in the right direction. But the only thing that benefits him right now is the division of the electorate. As long as the CAQ and the Liberals split the Francophone vote in the regions, it's helping the PQ. And that's why the Journal de Montréal and the Léger poll is actually good for the PQ. This type of rise for Christine Fréchette helps the PQ. So for him, we could talk about what he should do. Will he do that? I don't think so. But again, what's helping Christine Fréchette is that she is the only political leader right now that is talking to Quebecers about the core day-to-day kitchen table issues that affects them. And that's what's working right now. And so Charles Milliard, again, we talked about it yesterday, he is nowhere on the core kitchen table issues. Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon will have no choice. He will have to put out some sort of agenda to help people with their problems, because we will be talking about affordability, healthcare, and housing come the fall. There's no way to get around it.
All right, let me move to the other story, which is gaining a bit more traction federally, I guess. This idea, is this a war of words now between BC Premier David Eby and the Prime Minister? Are we at that level?
Well, I think where we're at is, just imagine if you would replace the BC Premier with the Quebec Premier. We would be saying right now that the Quebec Premier is positioning herself in a strong negotiating stance. And what's going on here is that Premier Eby of British Columbia has seen Mark Carney go to Alberta seemingly every other week to get Danielle Smith on side, and the big investments and big deals around the pipeline and energy. But I think what David Eby is doing right now, and it's very smart of him, he's saying, look, I'm not a province that is threatening sovereignty like Alberta or Quebec. I need a little attention as well. And if you want a pipeline, you're going to have to talk to me. And obviously it's no accident that the day before Mark Carney went to Alberta to move forward on the pipeline project, he announced a massive electrification plan. And I'm thinking what's happening right now is that BC it's the opening negotiating position to get major federal spending, not only on electrification, but, big training programs, housing programs are coming up. That's always been the key here. And BC is important federally for the Liberals, especially Vancouver area, and there's some by-elections coming up. And so the idea here, I think, is just the beginning of a discussion and jockeying for position to get a big, big federal spend in exchange for BC moving forward with Alberta on that pipeline.
I got to tell you, though, David, with respect to, and I saw David Eby kind of making the point today, when was the last time we had a provincial premier kind of get up there and suggest that, hey, you know what? Out in BC, we're pro-Canada. We want to stay in this country. We're not, we're not Alberta. We're not Quebec. Why are you favoring them when we're the true nationalists here, and we're kind of been left in the dust?
I know, and it's refreshing, isn't it? And it's a great position, and I think it's very strong and very smart, because usually, you would get that from Ontario, right? And Ontario is, it's the largest economy. It's central Canada. It's Toronto. And so Ontario doesn't have to play that card.
Right,
but
exactly.
BC is saying, hey, hold on. We're a major player here. And it's true. British Columbia is not, those people out west beyond the Rockies. This is a major piece of the Canadian economy. And so for a premier to stand up and say, hey, remember us?
Yeah. And
the thing is that he knows what he's doing as well politically, because, as I said, we think here, that the Liberals, okay, it's Ontario and Quebec, but let's say things as they are. There's a lot of seats in the greater Vancouver area that are Liberal, and so the Liberal government also depends on a strong showing in BC. So what he's doing here, I think, is very astute, very smart, in saying, hey, you're going to have to work with us, and it's going to mean money. And that's the way Mark Carney, I think, will understand it and start negotiations. And you're going to see over the next few weeks and months, I'm sure, some great announcements for British Columbia.
We shall see. David, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Adamite.
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll.
Coming to get you!
One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all. Bryan Adams Radio. I'm coming back to you. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app.
Everybody